I'm Diane, and I am the Community Service Librarian here at Paul Sawyer, and today I'll be showing you how to create your own crepe paper owl to spice up your fall home or office decor. Let's get started. First, you're going to start out with your kit. If you received a kit, you'll notice that you have two foam balls. One is a 4-inch ball and the other is a 3-inch ball. And to start, we are going to kind of roll these to make them a little bit more of an oval shape. Just roll them on a hard surface or a flat surface like a table. You have to give it a little bit of oomph for it to happen, but you just want to roll it on the table a little bit. After you've rolled them a little bit and they look a little bit more oval shaped, they're not going to look like a complete oval, but once they're just a little bit more oval, you're going to smash the top and the bottom. And you're not going to see a huge difference, but you just want to sort of get that top smashed in a little bit so it isn't so round on the top and bottom. So you'll start with your large ball and decide which is going to be your top, which will be your bottom. Next up, to make the bottom foam ball sit more securely and not roll around, you want your owl to sit straight up. You're going to cut a thin layer off the bottom and off the top. A very thin layer. It doesn't need to be much at all. You'll want to use a serrated knife with this. Of course, be very careful. Just a very small layer. If he sits, then you're in good shape. You'll do the same with the other side. Just like that. Next, you will take the smaller ball, and you're only going to do that on one side of that. The top of the owl's head is fine like it is, but the base, where it will glue to the bottom of the owl's body, it will glue better if you take a little layer off of the bottom. Again, just a very thin layer. You'll already see how that art sits together even better. And the next step is you have in your kit a pattern, a paper with the patterns on it. You'll have a wing, a feather, and a beak, and you'll want to cut these pattern pieces out to prepare for cutting them out of the crepe. Next, you will take your wing pattern piece and trace that onto the brown crepe paper twice to make your 2 wings. You want to be sure and follow the grain of the crepe paper suggested on the pattern piece. So you'll line that up to make sure the grain is going in the right direction, and just trace that onto your crepe. And it'll be faint, but you can see it enough to cut your wing out. You'll trace the next. Once you've traced it, then you will cut them out. Once you've cut your wings, then you will take your feather pattern and trace and cut the owl's feathers from all three colors of the crepe paper: the metallic gold, the copper, and the brown. Once again, you want to be sure to follow the grain of the crepe paper suggested on the little pattern piece. To show you, I will go ahead and trace and cut the feathers from the brown crepe that we just used for the wings. You're going to want to cut about 45 of each color, give or take a few feathers. You'll need more or less depending on how close together or spread out you glue your wings onto the owl. Or not the wings, but the feathers onto the owl rather. Again, you want to follow that grain, trace, and then cut. Now we will make 2 spirals from the gold crepe feathers to create the owl's eyes. I used 8 feathers per spiral, so we'll count those out. We're going to glue these onto the owl's face, and the 2 spirals will overlap a bit. That's perfectly fine. You want to position them kind of where the owl's eyes would be. So if you're looking straight on, you want to make sure the part that you cut is on the base of the head. So I'm going to place my spirals for the eyes about here and here. Once you finish your spirals, they'll look something like this. And don't be alarmed if you have some little glue strings. Once that dries, you can just pull those right off, and that won't be any problem at all. So after you've completed the spirals, then you are going to begin covering the rest of the owl's head by gluing feathers from the top of the head down to the base. And we will do that alternating the copper and the brown. That's how I did it. You can choose to do your pattern ever how you would prefer, but that's just what worked best for me. If it isn't consistent alternation throughout, it's no problem at all, because where it's rounded, you're not going to get a perfect pattern. But then you'll just start at the top and begin filling in those feathers. You don't need to glue the entire feather down. As long as you get it glued pretty good at the top, that will be sufficient, and then it still leaves it a little fluffy at the bottom, so it looks more like a feather. Okay, once you've completely covered your head of your owl, if there are any little white spots sticking up, you can always put another little feather in there, or you can hit it with another touch of glue and just glue that feather down a little bit over the top of the white showing through. Also, your little glue strings, you can go in and kind of pull those off. But he'll look something like this. So the next thing you're going to want to do is glue the black buttons into the center of the spirals to make the owl's eyes. So you're going to take your two buttons, you're going to glue them right in the center. And before you do that, you'll notice the bottom of the button has the little thing where the thread goes through. So if you kind of push it in to make a little bit of an indentation over where that glue has built up, that'll help make a little bit of a divot to glue it in. Don't push too hard because you don't want to punch an actual hole, but you'll see it just helps a little bit. Okay. We're going to do a little dab of glue in the center of the spiral. Then you'll place your button and hold that on there for a few seconds to make sure that it adheres. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, if his eyes look a little wide set to you, don't be alarmed. Once we put his beak on, it'll bring the whole face together. And that is actually the next step. You're going to take the beak pattern that you cut out and your little piece of metallic copper paper, and you're going to trace the beak pattern onto the paper and cut it out. Next, you're going to take your little beak and kind of shape it with your fingers to make it more into a curve, more beak-like. The pointy end pointing out. The larger end is what you will actually glue to the owl's face. Then you're going to put a little glue on your beak. And glue it right on to the face of the owl. Right between your eyes. to look like that. Now we're going to cover the larger ball with the crepe paper feathers to create the owl's body. I will be using gold for the owl's chest to make a block of, just a whole block of color for his chest, and then alternating the brown and copper for its back. Before I do that though, I'm going to do a single line around the neck where the head will attach to the body, alternating the brown and copper. So now that you have finished covering the head and the body with the feathers, you are going to glue the owl's head onto his body, and then we'll attach the wings. So to start, you're just going to put some glue. You want a good amount to make sure it stays put. You want to make sure that you're gluing it on where centered on the body there. Hold that on for a few seconds to make sure it adheres. All right, so now your head is on the body. So the last thing we have to do is to glue the wings on each side. There's not really a specific spot, just wherever you think his wing might be. So I'm just gonna stick one on either side. Once you have those glued on, you will have your final product. There's your little owl. I hope you've enjoyed the craft today and that you'll join us again for some more crafts coming up in the next few weeks. When you finished your crepe paper owl, we would love for you to share a photo of it on our Facebook page. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day.